Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the last video for Chapter 18 for the invertebrates. We are up to phylum Echinodermata. Echinodermata, we just got done talking about bugs. Remember, there's so many different kinds of bugs. Arthropoda. We're now talking about Echinodermata. Echine means spiny, derm means skin. So Echinodermata literally means spiny skin. Only about 7,000 species of echinoderms. Remember, there's 35,000 species of crustaceans. We're saying there's 5 times as many crustaceans as there are sea stars. Sea stars, sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sea daisies, sea lilies, brittle stars, feather stars, and sand dollars. I said sea star. You probably haven't heard that term before. They used to be called starfish. We don't call them starfish anymore because they're not fish. So we don't call them starfish, we call them sea stars. Patrick Star is a sea star. He's not a starfish. They have a water vascular system. So here's a picture of a sea star. This center ring that we see right here, it's referred to as the ring canal. The ring canal is connected to basically a siphon where the animal can draw seawater in through this pore right here. It's called the madreporite, not terribly important. The madreporite is how the animal draws in seawater, and that seawater goes into this ring. Notice how the ring has canals going out into each arm. Those are called radial canals. Attached to each arm are these structures called tube feet. You look right here, and you can see what a tube foot looks like. A tube foot is basically a eyedropper with a suction cup at the end. And so when you squeeze the bulb of the top of the eyedropper, it causes the suction cup to spread out. When you release the bulb, now the suction cup has spread out, it's going to pull back up again. And so it's pretty good attachment structure. And notice how many of these tube feet does the animal have? And the answer is a whole bunch of tube feet that we see on the animal. If they use these tube feet for walking, they actually also use these tube feet for opening up prey items. Echinoderms are ancient. They date back to 530 million years ago, which means, again, that's right at that breaking point between the Precambrian and the Paleozoic. They pretty much showed up in that Cambrian explosion like most other animals did. They have calcium-rich skeletons. That's what the echinoderm, the spiny skin, means. They have pentaradiate symmetry. What does pent mean? Pent means 5. So think of Patrick Star. Patrick has how many appendages? He's got his 2 legs, he's got his 2 arms, and he has his head, right? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we look at echinoderms, we see symmetry usually in terms of 5. It's 5, 10, 15, 20. They are bilaterally symmetrical, though, as larvae. Here we see a bunch of different echinoderms. This is a sand dollar. This is what a living sand dollar looks like. I'm sure you've probably seen a sand dollar in like a tourist shop somewhere like on the beach. This is what a living one looks like. You can see the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's basically just kind of a flattened out sea star. This is a sea biscuit. Ha ha ha, yeah, I know, the horse. The horse is named after the animal. A sea biscuit is just an inflated sand dollar, and you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 limbs of, again, it's basically just a sea star. This right here is called a brittle star. Notice how the brittle star, it looks like a sea star, but it's kind of weird. Like the legs aren't beefy enough. The legs are kind of skinny. Well, they're a different class of echinoderm, the brittle star. This thing right here is called a crinoid, and a crinoid is a sea lily. Again, if you were to see this, a sea lily, what does it look like to you? It looks like a flower. If it looks like a flower, what kind of animal do you think it is? Oh, or what kind of living thing do you think it is? Oh, it's a kind of plant. And it's not a plant, it is an animal. Not only is it an animal, it is the second most complicated animal in echinoderm. Here we see a big, pretty sea star, and again, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 limbs. Here we see a really complicated sea star. I think it's called a sun star. I've actually counted the limbs before. I think there's 18. You may have lost a couple. This is a basket star. Really, really super deep water. Look where it's found. That's 2,100 meters down. That's like a mile and a half down. Really, really super deep. And this is a feather star right here. It's related to the crinoids. Again, if you were to look at these things, and if I were to ask you what kingdom should they be put in, you would probably say they should go into kingdom Plantae, right? Nope. These are animals. And again, in their own way, they're really kind of pretty. In their own strange way, they're kind of pretty. Here we see sea urchins. I like this picture in particular because of a couple reasons. I love that blue. But you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A sea urchin is really just a sea star that you've taken and bent all of the legs up and then tied them together at the top. So that on the bottom there's a mouth. And on that sea star there is, Patrick's mouth would be where his belly button is. The center mouth, the mouth on a sea star is in the very center on the bottom. So imagine Patrick laying over on his face, and his mouth is where his belly button is. So this sea urchin, all those legs have been bent up and are all tied together at the top. You may not be able to see it in the video, so please again look at this on the PowerPoint. You can clearly see the tube feet. And so these tube feet are extending off up from underneath of this sea urchin, illustrating again the fact that it's just a sea star that's had the legs pinned up to the top, and so these tube feet, which would be on the bottom, are now on the sides. Here's another picture of a sea urchin. Here's a sea cucumber, probably one of the oddest shaped echinoderms. All the rest of them have that very clear pentaradiate symmetry. It's harder to see the pentaradiate symmetry in the sea cucumber. And this is another picture of a sea lily. This is another picture of a crinoid. And again, if I were to ask you, what is that? You'd say, oh, that's a flower. No, it's not a flower. It's an animal. Sea stars eat clams and oysters. They use those tube feet to pry the shell open. And when they've pried the shell open, they then push their stomach out of their own mouths and into the clam, and then they release the digestive enzymes which digest the clam from the inside out. Crazy, right? They only open it up 100 microns. 100 microns is literally the width of a human hair. They use those tube feet to pull open the clam shell the width of a hair, and then they push their stomach down into the clam shell and eat the clam from the inside out, using the tube feet to pull it open and then eat. You see those tube feet. Thanks for watching.